99% of you are not subscribed to the channel. At 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories. Subscribe now. The year was 2142, a time when humanity had reached unprecedented heights in technological advancement and global cooperation. Yet the planet was still grappling with age-old issues: resource scarcity, environmental degradation, and geopolitical tensions. It was during this precarious period that a series of inexplicable events began to unfold. Strange signals from deep space were intercepted by Earth's most advanced observatories, leading to a global frenzy of speculation and excitement. On a crisp autumn morning, the world watched in awe as massive alien ships, sleek and gleaming with unknown alloys, descended from the sky. They hovered above major cities, their presence a mix of awe and dread. These were the Zalthar, an extraterrestrial race whose existence had been speculated by scientists but never confirmed. The Zalthar's arrival was a turning point in history, and the world held its breath, waiting to see if they came as friends or foes. The Zalthar representatives, tall and slender with luminescent eyes, emerged from their crafts. They spoke through a universal translator, their voices calm and melodic. They introduced themselves as emissaries of peace, travelers from a distant star system seeking a harmonious relationship with Earth. They came bearing gifts: miraculous cures for diseases, advanced clean energy technology, and machines that could reverse environmental damage. The world leaders, wary but hopeful, welcomed the Zalthar with open arms. Treaties were signed, and the Zalthar were given access to Earth's resources in exchange for their technological marvels. For the next few years, humanity experienced what seemed like a golden age. The Zalthar's technology cured diseases that had plagued mankind for centuries, eradicated poverty, and provided clean, limitless energy. The global economy boomed, and a new era of prosperity dawned. The aliens were celebrated as saviors, and their culture began to influence human society. Zalthar art, music, and philosophy became integrated into Earth's cultural fabric. The world seemed united under a new banner of intergalactic peace. However, this idyllic period was short-lived. Unbeknownst to the public, not all humans were convinced of the Zalthar's benevolence. A handful of scientists and military officials grew suspicious of the aliens' true motives. Among them was Dr. Elena Fisher, a leading neurotechnologist, and Colonel David Lawson, a high-ranking officer in the United Earth Defense Force. They noticed subtle but troubling changes in the global power structure as the Zalthar began to exert more influence over political decisions and economic policies. There were whispers of secret experiments and unexplained disappearances. The truth was finally revealed in a shocking broadcast that was simultaneously transmitted across the globe. The Zalthar leader, Supreme Commander Varkan, appeared on every screen, his usually serene expression replaced by a cold, calculating demeanor. In a chilling speech, he announced the implementation of a new global order, declaring that humanity was to be subjugated for its own good. The gifts they had provided were a Trojan horse, a means to make Earth dependent on their technology. The most insidious of these gifts was a mind control device embedded in the cures and energy solutions, which had slowly altered human neural pathways, making them susceptible to the Zalthar's control. Panic swept the world as the true nature of the Zalthar's plan became evident. The aliens activated the mind control devices, and millions of people suddenly fell under their influence, becoming docile and obedient. Governments crumbled as leaders were either controlled or executed. In a matter of days, the world was plunged into chaos. The Zalthar began rounding up dissenters and those who were immune to the mind control, either due to genetic anomalies or sheer willpower. These individuals were taken to secret facilities, their fates unknown. Dr. Fisher and Colonel Lawson, immune to the devices due to their exposure to experimental technology, quickly went underground. They realized that the only way to fight back was to form a resistance, but their numbers were few, and the Zalthar's reach seemed insurmountable. The world that had once celebrated the arrival of these extraterrestrial beings now faced an unprecedented nightmare. In the darkness of their hidden bunker, Dr. Fisher and Colonel Lawson made a vow. They would resist, They would fight, and they would find a way to free humanity from the Zalthar's grip. Thus, the seeds of rebellion were sown, even as the Zalthar tightened their control over a broken and subjugated Earth. The Golden Age had turned into a dystopian nightmare, and the struggle for freedom was just beginning. In the shadow of the Zalthar's oppression, humanity's flickering hope lay in the hands of a small but determined group of resistors. Dr. Elena Fisher and Colonel David Lawson became the unlikely leaders of this clandestine movement. Operating from a series of hidden bunkers and safe houses, they worked tirelessly to gather intelligence, recruit like-minded individuals, and devise a plan to fight back against the alien overlords. The first priority was survival. The Zalthar's forces were relentless, patrolling cities and rural areas alike, hunting down any who resisted their rule. Communication networks were monitored, and dissent was met with swift and brutal retaliation. Despite the danger, small cells of resistance began to form across the globe. These cells operated independently, each knowing little about the others to minimize the risk of capture compromising the entire network. The movement was a patchwork of humanity's best and brightest: scientists, soldiers, hackers, and ordinary citizens who refused to surrender their freedom. Dr. Fisher's primary focus was on understanding and countering the Zalthar's mind control technology. Working with the limited resources available, she dissected the alien devices recovered from the field. Her breakthrough came when she discovered that the devices manipulated specific neural pathways using a unique frequency emitted by Zalthar technology. This frequency altered the brain's natural electrical signals, making individuals susceptible to control. It was a horrifying realization, but it also provided a glimmer of hope. If they could disrupt this frequency, they could potentially free those under the aliens' control. Meanwhile, Colonel Lawson led the efforts to train and equip the resistance fighters. They had to be adaptable, using guerrilla tactics to strike quickly and disappear before the Zalthar could respond. He knew that direct confrontation with the aliens' advanced technology would be suicidal. Instead, they focused on sabotage, targeting supply lines, communication hubs, and other critical infrastructure. These small victories were vital for the morale of the resistance, proving that the Zalthar were not invincible. The turning point for the resistance came when they captured Korin, a Zalthar scientist who had grown disillusioned with the invasion. Korin's knowledge was invaluable. He confirmed that the Zalthar were not a monolithic entity, but a fractured society with internal conflicts. This information was a revelation. It meant the Zalthar were vulnerable to manipulation and dissent. Korin also provided detailed schematics of the mind control devices and insight into the aliens' technology and strategies. With Korin's help, Dr. Fisher developed a prototype for a neural disruptor. This device emitted a counter frequency that could neutralize the mind control signals. The first test of the disruptor was a daring raid on a small Zalthar outpost. The resistance fighters, equipped with the new devices, launched a surprise attack. As they activated the disruptors, the Zalthar soldiers, along with the controlled humans, collapsed, incapacitated. It was a resounding success, proving the disruptor's effectiveness and providing the resistance with its first major victory. News of the victory spread quickly through the underground networks. The resistance grew bolder, launching more attacks and rescuing those still under the Zalthar's control. They developed a system of safe zones where freed humans could recuperate and, if willing, join the fight. The resistance's numbers swelled as more and more people broke free from the aliens' grasp and took up arms. However, with success came increased scrutiny. The Zalthar, realizing the growing threat, intensified their efforts to crush the rebellion. They deployed more advanced surveillance drones, increased patrols, and even began using human collaborators to infiltrate the resistance. It was a dangerous time for the movement, but the resistance adapted, becoming more secretive and using encrypted communication and coded language. As the resistance's actions became bolder, they caught the attention of the wider world. Whispers of rebellion spread, and for the first time since the invasion, the general populace began to hope for a future free of alien domination. The resistance also made contact with other alien species sympathetic to their cause, providing them with vital intelligence and technology. Despite these advances, the Resistance knew they were still outmatched. The Zalthar's technology was far superior, and they controlled the majority of Earth's resources, yet the Resistance had one crucial advantage. They knew their enemy's weakness. The Zalthar were overconfident and divided, and the humans' fierce desire for freedom was a force they couldn't understand or control. In a clandestine meeting, the Resistance's leadership gathered to discuss their next steps. Dr. Fisher presented her latest findings: evidence of a central control hub in a heavily fortified Zalthar base, believed to be the source of the mind control signal. Destroying this hub could cripple the aliens' control over the human population and be a decisive blow to their occupation. Colonel Lawson outlined a bold plan: a coordinated strike on the central hub, using the disruptors and all available forces. It would be their most dangerous mission yet, but the potential rewards were immense. The Resistance was ready to make a stand, to show the world that humanity would not be enslaved. As the meeting concluded, the leaders knew they were approaching a critical juncture. The Resistance had come far, but the real battle was just beginning. They steeled themselves for the fight ahead, determined to reclaim their world from the alien invaders. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Earth and the future of humanity. With the successful use of the neural disruptors, the Resistance gained a crucial advantage over the Zalthar. The aliens, once seemingly omnipotent, now faced a growing force of humans who could resist and counter their mind control technology. The Resistance's bold actions emboldened more humans to join the cause, swelling their ranks and bolstering their resolve. Dr. Elena Fisher continued refining the neural disruptors, making them more efficient and portable. As the disruptors became more widely available, they were distributed among Resistance cells worldwide. The devices allowed for targeted strikes, enabling small teams to disable mind-controlled human guards and Zalthar soldiers alike. These operations became increasingly sophisticated, with the Resistance using advanced tactics to outmaneuver their technologically superior foes. Captain Marcus Hayes, known as the Predator, emerged as a legendary figure within the Resistance. A former decorated military leader, Hayes had become the embodiment of human resilience and defiance. Leading a specialized unit called the Shadow Wolves, he and his team became experts in striking fear into the hearts of the Zalthar. The Shadow Wolves were tasked with hunting down high-ranking Zalthar officials, disrupting their operations, and sowing chaos within their ranks. The Shadow Wolves' first major operation was an audacious assault on a fortified Zalthar command center in the ruins of Berlin. The mission was risky, targeting a key figure in the Zalthar hierarchy, General Thalmar, one of the architects of the occupation. The team infiltrated the facility under the cover of darkness, using the disruptors to neutralize the guards silently. As they reached the central chamber, they found Thalmar deep in communication with other Zalthar leaders. In a swift and brutal confrontation, Hayes confronted Thalmar. The alien general, taken aback by the humans' boldness, attempted to activate a fail-safe mechanism to call for reinforcements. However, the Shadow Wolves had anticipated this move. They had hacked into the facility's systems beforehand, cutting off all external communications. With no backup coming, Thalmar stood no chance. Hayes executed the general, leaving a chilling message carved into the wall. "Predators are here." This assassination sent shockwaves through the Zalthar command. The humans had struck at the heart of their leadership, proving that the Resistance was not just a nuisance, but a serious threat. The loss of General Thalmar destabilized the Zalthar's operations in Europe, giving the Resistance a valuable foothold. More importantly, it marked a psychological victory. The Zalthar, who had once seen themselves as the unchallenged rulers of Earth, now had to face the reality that they were vulnerable. As the Resistance continued their attacks, they uncovered more about the Zalthar's society and the fractures within it. Korin, the disillusioned Zalthar scientist who had defected, provided crucial intelligence. He revealed that the Zalthar's society was governed by a strict hierarchy, with various factions vying for power. The Supreme Commander, Varkon, maintained control through fear and the promise of Earth's resources. However, many within the Zalthar ranks were dissatisfied with the prolonged occupation and the Resistance's growing threat. Using this knowledge, the Resistance began a campaign of psychological warfare. They spread misinformation, exploited the divisions within the Zalthar ranks, and even made contact with dissenting Zalthar factions. These factions, tired of Varkan's rule and the endless war, provided the Resistance with information and supplies. The Resistance's ability to play on the Zalthar's internal conflicts further weakened the aliens' hold on Earth. However, the Zalthar were not without their own strategies. In response to the Resistance's growing strength, they intensified their crackdown on human populations. Cities became militarized zones, with curfews and checkpoints enforced by both alien soldiers and mind-controlled humans. The Zalthar deployed more sophisticated surveillance drones and began using human collaborators to infiltrate resistance cells. These collaborators, lured by promises of power or coerced through threats to their families, became a thorn in the Resistance's side. In one particularly devastating incident, a high-ranking collaborator betrayed a major resistance base. The Zalthar launched a surprise attack, overwhelming the defenders and capturing many key figures. It was a bitter blow, but the Resistance quickly regrouped. They learned from their mistakes, increasing their security measures and further compartmentalizing their operations. Despite these setbacks, the Resistance continued to gain ground. They liberated small towns and rural areas, establishing pockets of free territory. In these liberated zones, they provided medical care, food, and safety to the civilians, building a support network that sustained the fight. The Resistance also began broadcasting messages of hope and defiance, countering the Zalthar's propaganda and rallying more people to their cause. As the year drew to a close, the Resistance made a daring move. They targeted a major Zalthar facility in the heart of what was once New York City, now a heavily fortified alien stronghold. This facility was believed to be a central hub for the mind control network. If they could destroy it, they would significantly weaken the Zalthar's ability to control the human population. The operation, codenamed Eclipse, was the most ambitious yet. It involved a multi-pronged assault with coordinated strikes from various resistance cells. Captain Hayes and the Shadow Wolves were tasked with infiltrating the facility and planting explosives at critical points. Dr. Fisher and Corin worked behind the scenes, hacking into the facility's systems to disrupt their defenses. The battle was fierce and chaotic. The Zalthar, aware of the facility's importance, fought desperately to defend it. The resistance fighters, fueled by their desire for freedom, pressed on despite heavy casualties. As the conflict raged, Hayes and his team reached the central control room. They encountered fierce resistance but managed to plant the explosives. With moments to spare, they evacuated the building, detonating the charges remotely. The explosion rocked the city, and the facility crumbled. The destruction of the hub sent a shockwave through the Zalthar's control network. The mind control signal weakened, and across the globe, millions of humans suddenly found themselves free from the aliens' influence. It was a decisive victory, a turning point in the war. The aftermath of Operation Eclipse was felt across the world. The Zalthar, now reeling from the loss of their primary control mechanism, struggled to maintain order. The resistance, emboldened by their success, prepared for the final phase of their campaign. The hunters had become the hunted, and the balance of power was shifting. The stage was set for a final showdown, and humanity stood on the brink of reclaiming their planet. The destruction of the mind control facility in New York City marked a significant turning point in the war against the Zalthar. Across the globe, the sudden freedom of millions of formerly controlled humans sparked a wave of uprisings. The Zalthar's once ironclad control over Earth began to crumble. In the chaos, the resistance seized the moment to rally their forces for a final push to liberate the planet. In the wake of Operation Eclipse, the Zalthar retreated to their primary stronghold in the Andes Mountains, a massive fortress built into the peaks and valleys. This bastion, known as the Citadel, was heavily fortified and equipped with the remaining functional mind control devices and an array of alien technology. Supreme Commander Varkan, reeling from the loss of his key facility, consolidated his forces there, preparing for a last stand. He knew that the resistance would come, and he was determined to crush them once and for all. The resistance leadership, now bolstered by new allies and resources, convened to plan the assault on the citadel. Dr. Elena Fisher, Captain Marcus Hayes, Corin, and other key figures gathered in a secret underground base to devise their strategy. They knew the battle would be the most challenging yet, as the Zalthar had fortified the citadel with everything at their disposal, including advanced weaponry, shields, and a contingent of loyal alien troops. Dr. Fisher had developed an advanced version of the neural disruptor, now capable of greater range and efficiency. This new version, dubbed the Liberator, was to be the keystone of their attack. The plan involved a multi-phase assault, an initial infiltration to disable the citadel's defenses, followed by a coordinated ground and air attack to breach the fortress and neutralize the Zalthar forces. As the resistance prepared, they received an unexpected message from a faction within the Zalthar ranks. Disillusioned with Varkon's leadership in the war, these Zalthar offered to aid the resistance. They provided detailed schematics of the citadel, highlighting weak points and critical systems. This insider knowledge was invaluable and showed that the Zalthar were more divided than ever. With their assistance, the resistance formulated a precise plan to exploit these weaknesses. The day of the assault arrived. The resistance forces, now numbering in the tens of thousands, moved into position around the citadel. Civilians in liberated zones watched from afar, their hopes pinned on this final battle. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. Captain Hayes, leading the ground forces, gave a stirring speech, reminding everyone of the stakes: freedom or subjugation, life or death. The resistance fighters, hardened by years of struggle, steeled themselves for the fight ahead. The first phase of the attack commenced at dawn. A specialized team, including Hayes and the Shadow Wolves, infiltrated the citadel under the cover of darkness. Using the Liberators, they disabled key defensive systems and communications arrays, causing confusion among the Zalthar forces. As explosions echoed through the mountain, the main resistance forces launched a full-scale assault. Jets and drones, equipped with human and salvaged alien technology, strafed the citadel's defenses, while ground troops advanced, engaging in fierce combat with the Zalthar soldiers. The battle was intense and brutal. The Zalthar, though outnumbered, fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. They deployed their advanced weaponry, causing heavy casualties among the resistance. However, the Liberators proved to be a decisive advantage. As resistance fighters moved deeper into the citadel, they used the devices to neutralize Zalthar troops and free remaining controlled humans. Meanwhile, in the heart of the citadel, Dr. Fisher and Corin worked frantically to disable the central control system for the remaining mind control devices. They faced significant resistance, as Varkon had anticipated such an attack and fortified the control room heavily. As the fighting raged around them, they hacked into the system, racing against time to shut it down. Captain Hayes and his team reached the inner sanctum, where Supreme Commander Varkon awaited. The encounter was tense, with Varkon flanked by his most loyal guards. He derided the humans' rebellion, claiming their resistance was futile. Hayes, unwavering, engaged Varkon in a fierce battle. The two clashed in a brutal exchange, their struggle symbolizing the broader conflict between humanity's desire for freedom and the Zalthar's oppressive control. As the fight reached its climax, Hayes, bloodied but determined, managed to overpower Varkon. The Supreme Commander, in his final moments, attempted to trigger a catastrophic self-destruct mechanism that would annihilate the citadel and everyone in it. But Dr. Fisher and Corin, having successfully gained control of the central systems, thwarted his last-ditch effort. With Varkon defeated and the citadel's systems compromised, the remaining Zalthar forces surrendered or fled. The battle was won. The citadel, the last stronghold of the Zalthar on Earth, had fallen. The resistance celebrated their hard-fought victory, but the cost was high. The ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen, both human and Zalthar. The survivors, though exhausted and wounded, stood together, united in triumph. In the aftermath, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The Zalthar who remained were captured and held accountable for their actions. Some of the alien defectors, like Korin, were granted asylum and worked alongside humans to dismantle the remnants of the Zalthar's influence on Earth. The planet, scarred by war, embarked on a new chapter, one of reconstruction and healing. Dr. Fisher, Captain Hayes, and other resistance leaders were hailed as heroes. They became symbols of humanity's resilience and determination. Hayes, often referred to as the Predator, retired from the military but continued to work towards ensuring that such an invasion would never happen again. Dr. Fisher focused on repairing the damage done to Earth's neural networks, dedicating her life to healing the minds affected by the Zalthar's technology. As the world recovered, a new global order emerged. Nations came together to form a united front, vowing to protect Earth from any future threats. The experience with the Zalthar had taught humanity valuable lessons about vigilance, unity, and the price of freedom. The legend of the resistance and the downfall of the Zalthar spread beyond Earth, reaching the stars. Humanity had not only survived an alien invasion, but had also risen to become a force to be reckoned with. The message was clear. Earth was no longer a vulnerable target, but a planet of warriors and survivors. The Zalthar had betrayed humanity, but in doing so, they had forged Earth's greatest defenders. The final showdown had ended, but the legacy of the resistance lived on. The world moved forward, forever changed by the events that had transpired. Humanity, now aware of its strength and resilience, stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united and unyielding.